Hello and welcome to Brain Power. I'm your host, Thomas Trombley, and we'll be discussing topics ranging from current news, world events, and religion. Basically, whatever bit of news that catches my eye. If you have a story you'd like covered here, or a question you'd like answered, send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp. Like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline, or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com. Today is Sunday, May 10th. It's also Mother's Day for all you all you mothers out there. And for anybody who forgot that it's Mother's Day, buy your mother some roses. Anyway, it's also the birthday of a friend of mine, Anton Heimerman. I'd like to wish him a happy birthday. For anybody in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, he's actually a pretty good videographer. If you're ever looking for somebody to do some camera work, he's your man. Anyway, today we're going to be looking a little bit closer at news as compared to my my previous two episodes. Let's start things off here with an interesting story that came across my feed a couple days ago. IBM's supercomputer chef releases a cookbook. Now, this is actually an old story looking at it, but still, IBM's Watson supercomputer has been dabbling in the world of cooking for a while now. Last year, for instance, it offered up its own barbecue sauce, which was reportedly a hit. Soon, you'll be able to try some of Chef Watson's recipes in your own kitchen. The computer is launching its own cookbook, Cognitive Cooking with Chef Watson, IBM reports in a press release. The book, due out tomorrow, once again, this is actually an old story. The book came out April 14th, so it's been out for a little while. You can find it probably at Barnes & Noble or most other major book retailers. It comes after the computer helped run a food truck at last year's South by Southwest Festival, and later launched a cooking app with Bon Appetit. Watson's cooking skills resulted from its work with chefs at the Institute of Culinary Education, IBM notes. The computer gathered information on how to pair foods and how flavors work together. Then it started coming up with recipes of its own, which ICE chefs tasted. Given the numerous different combinations of possible ingredients in the world, it's impossible for a single person to imagine and reason about them all, IBM notes. But chefs have tweaked Watson's recipes to their own liking. You can sample some of them, including a Russian celery sandwich and Asian butternut squash soup, at ibmchefwatson.com. Others sound particularly unusual, Quartz notes. For instance, the computer's apple kebab. Strawberries and mushrooms also share a lot of flavor compounds, says a Watson project leader. Turns out they go quite well together. And I've got to say, I don't know about anybody else listening to this, but personally, I've never taken a bite out of a strawberry and thought, I want a mushroom to go with this. That would be amazing. Or vice versa. I've never eaten a mushroom and said, I want a strawberry. It's got me curious, though. I'll have to try them out. Personally, I plan on actually, I will take a look at the cookbook and I'll try out some of the recipes myself, and I'll talk about them in the next show, see if, let you guys know what I think of them. Next story, actually really a sad story, especially really sad following the cookbook story. About a week ago, there was a Draw Muhammed event held in Garland, Texas, and 2 people were shot dead. And it's police shot 2 suspects dead after they allegedly opened fire outside a Muhammad cartoon contest in Garland, Texas, yesterday evening, which was actually May 2nd. according to the news story here. The suspects were shot in the parking lot of the Curtis Cutwell Center after getting out of their vehicle around the time that the controversial event inside was scheduled to end. Police tell NBC News that a security guard was injured in the shooting outside the event, which was policed by up to 40 extra officers. The injured guard was shot in the leg and has now been released from the hospital, CNN reports. The event was hosted by the American Freedom Defense Initiative, which offered $10,000 for the best cartoon depicting the Prophet. After the shooting, dozens of attendees were taken to a separate location and briefly questioned by the FBI. Ultra-right Dutch politician Geert Wilders was one of the event's highest-profile attendees, reports the BBC. He tweeted that he had left before shots were fired. Local Muslim groups believe the attackers may have been lone wolf terrorists. They say there had been no plans even for peaceful protests of the event. We were actively ignoring and encouraging the community to ignore it, the director of the Regional Council on American Islamic Relations tells the Morning News. We did not want to be the bearers of any kind of incitement. Now, personally, I think that kind of goes a long way towards showing a shift in the policies of Islam. It used to be where an event like this, you're guaranteed you'd have every Muslim in the area showing up to protest, just because it's kind of their religious duty. And they hold that very strongly. But now, the leaders of these groups are even saying, just ignore it. You can't stop it. You can't stop people from being stupid. Just ignore it. But of course, after this event happened, there was all over Facebook, all over Twitter, all over social media of every kind. There were people saying, "Oh no, it's you should know better than to draw Muhammad. You're just going to bring ISIS down on you." Which, to a certain extent is true. Yeah, I mean, you should know better. You can't be surprised when these sorts of things happen. For example, my favorite example would be the Charlie Hebdo shootings. It's those people, they were not surprised, though. They knew what was going to happen when they did that, and yet they went ahead and did it anyway, because if you allow any one group to say, you cannot make fun of us, that's when you lose the war, basically. You lose. Plain and simple. So, I mean, while I agree that these people should not have been surprised that this incited a violent response, at the same time, I still stand by it. Meanwhile, that being said, coming up soon, May 20th actually, is the unofficial Draw Muhammad Day. So anybody who's interested, go ahead and on May 20th, draw a picture. Why not? Have some fun. Just make sure not to, draw your picture in a large public area where, people will come in and shoot you. Speaking of Texas, and sad part is I'm going to come back to Texas one more time as well. I'll do that a little bit later, though. Top Texas lawman dubbed Snoop Dogg as a dope-smoking cop hater. Which, let's be honest, he is a dope smoker, and I don't know what his view on police officers is, but I don't think that has any bearing on this main story here. Texas chief law enforcement official called Snoop Dogg a dope-smoking cop hater before reprimanding a state trooper who posed for a picture with the rapper. Snoop Dogg posted a photo to Instagram with Department of Public Safety trooper Billy Spears in March with the comment, "Me and my deputy dog." It was taken during the South by Southwest Music Festival, which once again that was catered by IBM's Chef Watson, which is pretty awesome. Where Spears was working off duty as extra security. Spears is now suing DPS after being disciplined for taking a picture with a public figure who has several convictions for drug possession. Emails obtained by Spears' attorney, through open records laws, show the incident went all the way to the DPS director, Steve McCraw, best known for overseeing the state's border security operations. Apparently, he would rather work the convention while on a week's vacation to earn additional money rather than take an additional tour on the border, McCraw wrote. He must not understand that he was being lampooned by a dope-smoking cop-hater, which reflects very poorly on the department. The emails included DPS supervisor explaining that Spears and other troopers have routinely taken pictures with other celebrities at the Southwest Music Festival. Now, personally, I completely disagree with DPS Director Steve McCraw when he said that the officer in question was being lampooned by this dope-smoking cop-hater. No. If anything, I would think that photograph and Snoop's comments on Instagram basically show that he's in support of the police officers. Yes, he may have been arrested a few times for drug possession charges. Regardless of why he was, yes, he has been arrested a few times. But that obviously hasn't colored his view of the system. Snoop was obviously a very intelligent man and said to himself, yeah, I've been arrested, but I was arrested for something I did. Personally, I'm not a weed smoker myself. I don't particularly care for rap. But if I had the chance to take a picture with Snoop Dogg, oh yeah, I'd be all over that in a heartbeat. I can very easily understand the motivations of the officer in question for wanting to take a picture with Snoop Dogg. I think that would be tops. That'd be awesome. So speaking of stupid things, there was a fight in Las Vegas a few days ago. I find it sad that they were billing it as like the most important fight of the century. Just the fight of the century. I mean, the way they were billing it, you would think it was Liston versus Patterson. You'd think it's Ali's Rumble in the Jungle. No, those are fights that are the huge fights that everybody has heard of, the big important fights. And this one, they call it Maypac. Mayweather and Pacquiao. Now, to be fair, apparently this fight had the largest payday, ever. It was a $180 million payday. It's just terrible. But it's easily understandable considering it was a $100 charge to watch it on pay-per-view. Yeah, needless to say, I didn't watch the fight. I mean, I would have if it was free or at least really cheap, just because, once again, they're billing it as the fight of the century. You've got to see it. But from what I read in the news stories the next day, I didn't really miss much. Sounds like the two basically just circled each other for a while and didn't do a whole lot of fighting. But either way, it's Mayweather won the fight by judge's decision. It wasn't a knockout, wasn't a technical knockout, nothing like that. Just straight up judge's decision. Speaking of judges, that reminds me of another story that came across my news feed a while back. A real-life Andy Dufresne was finally caught 56 years after serving time in Shawshank Prison. Turns out Andy Dufresne wasn't in, what was the name of that Mexican city? Zihuatanejo? Frank Freshwaters, who escaped the Ohio State Reformatory, which was the setting for the Shawshank Redemption, in 1959, was apprehended this week in Melbourne, Florida. He spent an astounding 56 years on the run. Freshwaters pled guilty to a manslaughter charge stemming from an automobile accident in 1957. 2 years later, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison after violating the terms of his deal. But that was only the beginning for Freshwaters, who, like Andy Dufresne from the 1994 movie The Shawshank Redemption, used his pull inside the prison to escape after only 7 months. For the next 56 years, Freshwaters worked mostly as a truck driver and hopped from state to state and town to town. He even collected Social Security, presumably under an alias. An astute marshal assigned to cold cases finally tracked Freshwaters down in a rural area of Florida. An old picture of Freshwaters came into play when, after a week of surveillance, authorities confronted him with a question as he left his trailer in a rural area near Melbourne. "Have you seen this man?" They showed him the picture, and he said he hadn't seen that guy in a long time. Then he admitted it and basically said, "You got me." Freshwaters is 79 years old and is confined to a wheelchair. Authorities don't yet know how he escaped from Shawshank. But personally, I'm willing to bet it wasn't tunneled through a wall behind a poster of, who was that? That was Rita Hayworth, I think it was. That was the last one that he had? I don't know, but either way, this story is actually kind of sad to me. It's, you never think that you would be rooting for an escaped convict. But the guy was out for, what did they say, 56 years, and they just now caught up with him. I'm kind of rooting for the guy just to stay gone. But whatever, that's just me. Here's some interesting news. In a U.S. first, dog infects people with the plague. Yeah, that's right, you heard it. The Black Death is back. Apparently it never actually left, which is a shock. It may have ended the lives of 25 million people in a single year in the 6th century, but the plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, is exceedingly rare in the U.S., infecting about 7 people a year per the CDC. But, in what officials tell ABC News, is the first such case on record in the States, a human got the disease from a dog. The small outbreak ultimately involved 4 people, all of whom recovered, reports NBC News. The outbreak of pneumonic plague, the most serious of the 3 forms, and the only one that humans can transmit to each other, was in rural Colorado. That fits with one doctor's statement to NBC that the plague is virtually always confined in this day and age to rural regions in the West. That's thanks in large part to populations of prairie dogs, who typically spread the diseases through fleas. In this case, an American pit bull terrier developed a fever and jaw rigidity last summer and had to be euthanized the very next day. The dog's owner went to the hospital 4 days later with a fever and bloody cough. A Colorado health official tells ABC the source is a surprise. Primarily, dogs don't get sick at all, or they get a minor illness. More often, cats play with prairie dogs, pick up infected fleas, and spread the bacteria to people when they cough infected blood or mucus. Another surprise, per NBC, human-to-human transmission may have occurred for the first time in 90 years. In addition to the owner and 2 veterinary workers, a friend of the owner was infected. While she did interact with the dog, the timeline of her infection suggests she may have gotten it from the owner. Which, that's once again, that's kind of a shock to me, because I'd always assumed that we had wiped out the plague, that it was never coming back, that we were completely done with it. Apparently not. Apparently it's still around. I mean, the upside is if you do get the plague, we have penicillin now. Chances are really strong that you're not going to die. You get to the hospital right away, you get to the doctor, you'll be taken care of. You'll be fine. There's not going to be somebody walking around with a cart through your town going, "Bring out your dead! Bring out your dead!" That was a Monty Python reference for those of you who aren't aware. Yeah, that's just a real shock to me that that still happens. Anyway, here's an interesting story that'll get any potheads among my listenership happy. Italian army, their new task is to reduce the cost of weed. While the Italian military's record as a fighting force may not be completely without blemish, it's turning out to be pretty good at growing weed. Medical marijuana is legal in Italy, but since it can be far too expensive to buy at pharmacies, the military was tasked with growing it in a secure location at a military-run factory in Florence. And the first crop is doing well, reports Corriere della Sera via the BBC. I don't know if that's a person or if that's a news outlet or I don't know what that is, but anyway, military authorities say the current price of legal medical marijuana from the Netherlands is up to $40 a gram. $40 a gram. Wow. But they hope to get it down as low as $5, which is about what it costs when it's bought illegally, according to Reuters. It notes that full Colorado-style legalization of marijuana in Italy is probably a long ways away. Real funny part is last year protesters planted 200,000 pot seeds at a U.S. Army base in Italy. That's funny to me. Meanwhile, just out of a simple sense of curiosity, I've actually got a weight conversion app on my phone here. And I want to see, let's see here, 1 pound equals 453.5 grams. Okay, now we're going to pull out the calculator. What do we got? It's $40 a gram from the Netherlands right now. So 40 times 453.5. Wow. If you were to buy 1 pound of medical marijuana through the Netherlands, it would cost you $18,140. Wow. That's just, that's wow. Once again, I don't know what it costs here in the States to get it legally in Colorado or illegally elsewhere, but somehow I doubt it's $40 a gram. That just sounds, wow. Well, sticking with the idea of drugs, Berlin area Aldi stores find 850 pounds of cocaine in banana boxes. Yeah, you heard that right. Let me go through this here. Workers at 13 Aldi stores in the Berlin-Brandenburg region discovered a total of 850 pounds of cocaine hidden in boxes of bananas. These boxes of bananas were loaded with more than just potassium. Berlin police announced Monday a total of 850 pounds of cocaine, worth an estimated $16.7 million, was found stashed in boxes of bananas delivered to 13 Aldi stores. Shipments at other stores are being searched for further narcotics. Police said store employees unpacking the produce found the cocaine wrapped in black foil packages among the bananas and reported the discoveries to authorities. The origin of the shipment was not revealed by police on Monday. Packages of cocaine totaling about 300 pounds were found in bananas delivered to Berlin area Aldi stores in a similar case in January 2014. Investigators said the traffickers made a logistical error in the 2014 case that led to the cocaine, which originated from Colombia, being delivered to the stores instead of being intercepted by members of their organization. Now, the sad part is when you think about it, just picture the guy on the boat, the guy standing there on the docks, intercepting the boat, intercepting the the shipments of cocaine, and he goes, yep, it's these ones. And he grabs. Can you just picture the look on the faces of the guys receiving the drugs when he shows up with these boxes of bananas and goes, "Hey guys, the cocaine's hidden in the bananas." Yeah, he opens it up and it's nothing but bananas. I can guarantee that guy did not live long. And it's really, I mean, what did they say? What's the number here? It was $16.7 million. I'm sorry, but if you have any kind of a job, it doesn't matter if you're a drug trafficker, if you're a food distribution warehouse, if you work at Best Buy, it doesn't matter. You work somewhere, and you are in charge of keeping track of $16.7 million worth of product. Don't you think you'd pay a little bit more attention than this guy obviously did? It's just my opinion, but if I was him, I'd be putting GPS trackers in with the bananas and the cocaine at the source just to be absolutely certain I can track them. This is, or put them in a different box or something. Loco Bananas, have the name of the company be. That'll be pretty damn obvious. Once again, just my opinion, but how do you lose track of that much money? It's, wow. Anyway, here's speaking of stupid people, here's a news story that really made me want to start buying weapons, basically. Arizona pastor predicts AIDS-free Christmas if all gays are killed as God commands. Yeah, you heard that right. A Baptist pastor in Tempe, Arizona, called for the mass extermination of LGBT people on Sunday in a sermon entitled AIDS, the Judgment of God. Pardon. In the sermon, which was uploaded to YouTube on Monday from Faithful Word Baptist Church, Pastor Stephen Anderson said that God has ordered in the Scriptures that gays should be killed, and that if humanity wants to have an AIDS-free world by Christmas, he said, that's what should be done. Turn to Leviticus 20:13, he says in the video, because I actually discovered the cure for AIDS. If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them, Anderson read aloud. Which, by the way, that is the verse in Leviticus 20:13. And that, my friend, is the cure for AIDS, he said. It was right there in the Bible all along, and they're out spending billions of dollars in researching and testing. It's curable. Right there, because if you executed the homos like God commands, you wouldn't have all this AIDS running rampant. At another point in his sermon, Anderson had a foot-stomping, shouting tantrum about the idea that people can be LGBT and Christian. There will never be any gays in this church, he said. Not ever, 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 ever. Kind of sounds like the argument of a 5-year-old, doesn't it? No, not ever. No homos will be allowed in this church as long as I'm pastor here, he insisted. Never. Say you're crazy. No, you're crazy. If you think that there's something wrong with my no homo policy. According to the website, ifyouonlynews.com, Anderson's sermons have stirred controversy in the past. He's run afoul of the Secret Service after openly praying in 2009 and again this year for the death of President Barack Obama. Other sermons from Faithful Word have included a meditation on the evils of allowing women to speak in church and a lengthy discourse on the lying, evil ways of Jewish people. Now, really, how is this guy still alive? I hate to put on the hat of, like, the Islamic fundamentalists and ISIS and whatnot, but I am really surprised that none of these groups that he has slammed, horribly slammed, have not come down and slayed him yet. It's a shock. And it's really a shock to me that in this day and age, not only are stupid people like him saying these things, but he still has a congregation. There are still people in his church listening to him and agreeing with him enough to stay in that church. It just makes no sense whatsoever. It's like the old double-sided argument here. If homosexuality is a choice, well, then guess what? So is heterosexuality. That means heterosexuality is not the normal, correct way to be. It's just the most common choice. It's... Fuck that guy. I hate idiots. But, unfortunately, there's... The reason there are so many stupid people is because God loves them. God loves stupid people. That's why he makes so many of them. That's assuming, if you believe in the God that created... Anyway, that's a different story for a different time. After the last 2 episodes, I think you guys can guess my point of view on that particular issue. But anyway... Texas to deploy troops to monitor U.S. military. Once again, stupid people. The U.S. military says that its 7-state Operation Jade Helm 15 this summer will be a training drill for special forces. But Governor Greg Abbott appears to have his doubts. Amid online conspiracy theories that the operation is an excuse for President Obama to impose martial law on Texas and put political prisoners in FEMA camps disguised as closed Walmarts. The Texas governor announced last week he had ordered the state guard to monitor the military exercises to safeguard the safety, constitutional rights, private property rights, and civil liberties of Texans, NPR reports. This was too much for some of Abbott's fellow Republicans, including former state representative Todd Smith, who accused the governor of pandering to idiots. Personally, I can't think of the last time I actually agreed with a Republican, but now is the right time. Yes, this governor is just pandering to idiots. I am horrified that I have to choose between the possibility that my governor actually believes this stuff and the possibility that my governor doesn't have the backbone to stand up to those who do, Smith wrote in an open letter to the governor. Texas Senator Ted Cruz, meanwhile... Yep, good old Ted Cruz, he's in here, says he does not believe the military operation is cover for a coup, but his office will ask the Pentagon about it anyway, because the federal government has not demonstrated itself to be trustworthy in this administration. Right, because they were oh so trustworthy in the last administration. Oh, we got to go to war because they got weapons of mass destruction. Right, W. Where's the weapons? Anyway, what do we got here? It's not clear why the July 15th to September 15th exercise has generated such paranoia, though the perhaps impolitic slogan, mastering the human domain, may have worked against it a little bit. Let's be honest, mastering the human domain, that kind of... It kind of runs parallel to Hitler's idea of, the master race. It's kind of what it sounds like. It's kind of a, Ixnay, don't be saying that stuff. But regardless of what the slogan is, it's... Really? You're going to put people in FEMA camps disguised as closed Walmarts? First out, when did FEMA become synonymous with prison camp? It's anybody that has ever been a prisoner of war or in any kind of a prison camp or internment camp can look at this and just shake their heads in disgust. There is no parallel whatsoever, not in the slightest. Somebody who was locked up in the Hanoi Hilton can go, FEMA versus the North Vietnamese. I'd take FEMA any day. But whatever. It's once again The idiots are taking over. It's the idiots on parade. But when it comes to stupid people, sometimes they do things that are a little funny. This is funny even though it shouldn't be. I mean, it is animal cruelty, but I still get a little bit of a chuckle. A pet sheep that was abandoned. Oh, by the way, this story comes out of New Zealand. A pet sheep that was abandoned in an Auckland street with the word ISIS painted on its wool has been described as being put through unnecessary stress. Animal welfare advocates have blasted the actions of whoever was responsible for stealing the sheep and spray painting it with the name of the Islamic terror group. It was taken to the Auckland County-operated Silverdale Animal Shelter and has been reunited with its family. Once again, this is a pet sheep, by the way. This is not like a sheep being grown for its wool. It's not a sheep on a farm. It's somebody's pet, like a dog or a cat. I guess, the people in New Zealand have weird pets, I guess. I don't know. On the scale of animal cruelty, it's not at the worst level, but it's still stupid, and it would have been highly stressful for the animal. Because, I mean, sheeps are by nature really nervous animals, and that would have just been totally unnecessary stress. Granted, it was obviously unnecessarily stressful for the animal, but man, they keep coming back to that point again and again. It was unnecessarily stressful, unnecessarily stressful. Well, what is necessary stress, really? I don't know. Yeah, that's just my opinion on that. Anyway, next story here. Once again, stupid people. Although this one's not as stupid, but Travis Sanders expected a fun night when he took his family to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on Saturday. But things took an unexpected turn when the 35-year-old Pahoa resident was tased by a park ranger and arrested after sending up a 3-inch quadcopter drone to take video of the Kilauea volcano. My toy has some lights on it, so I thought it would be fun to fly it up and down. No big deal, right? He tells the station. Wrong, because unmanned aircraft, with aircraft being legally defined as a device that is used or intended to be used for flight in the air, aren't allowed in national parks. A state parks spokeswoman adds that Sanders did not comply with the ranger's requests to stop. This same spokesperson tells the AP that the ranger had to ask Sanders 3 times to bring down the drone and that he refused to identify himself. Sanders tells News Now that there were no signs indicating that drones weren't allowed. The park says the rules are on its website. And that he didn't know the guy was a ranger. He sounded very angry, confrontational, and I didn't really want to stick around for it, so I just told him, I don't have ID and I'm leaving. Sanders was stun-gunned close to the edge of the caldera, which, by the way, has a 500-foot drop, while his daughter screamed at the ranger. He spent the night in jail before being released on a $500 bond. Some witnesses say the ranger's actions were out of line, but the spokeswoman says Sanders was belligerent and the ranger acted in the interest of public safety. What does public safety have to do with a guy flying an RC airplane? Or actually it was a RC helicopter. What does that have to do with anything? Public safety is not in question at all. But once again, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but either way, the biggest point to take away from this is if you're ever at a national park, and this is not just ones in Hawaii, it's if you're ever at Yellowstone, if you're ever at Mount Rushmore, if you're ever at Arlington National Cemetery, if you're ever anywhere where there's a federally funded national park, don't fly any RC airplanes. You will get tased. Best case scenario, you'll get tased. Anyway, I got about 5 minutes left here. I'm gonna finish the show off with with actually smart news. Well, some may view it as stupid, but I view it as smart and heroic and courageous. Because, I mean, this takes some big brass ones. In Egypt, a deeply religious country in a deeply religious region, atheism is not only taboo, it is dangerous. It is sometimes even criminal to publicly declare non-belief. Despite the danger, one group of activists is pushing back with a new online TV channel. Free Mind TV defends the right not to believe. Edited and produced in a studio in the United States, Free Mind TV says it wants to promote non-religious liberal ideas in the Middle East. On the screen, the presenter appears to be in a sophisticated studio, but in reality, presenter Ahmed Hakan, a former Muslim, and by the way, I apologize, Ahmed, if I mispronounced your last name. I'm sure I did. Anyway, he sits at a card table in a small bedroom in Egypt with a green cloth hanging behind him. He has asked that his location be kept secret because many of his countrymen consider atheism an insult to religion, making it dangerous to openly not believe. He speaks from personal experience. Ahmed said that in one instance, people on the street were trying to kill him and his wife, Nada Mandur, so he ran into a police station. The people followed and told the police that he appears on a TV program insulting Islam, and the couple was arrested. After they were released 24 hours later, they had to move to a different house to avoid threats and harassment. Mandur, also a former Muslim, shoots and directs some Free Mind TV programs. Since she abandoned religion 2 years ago, she said, most of her family has abandoned her. She said they hate her for being critical of religion and ultimately declaring herself a non-believer. She no longer sees her parents and is not allowed in the family home. Non-believers from Christian families in the Middle East face similar dangers. Ayman Ramsey, a former Christian who appears in the broadcasts, said that. Ramsey said it is not technically a crime to be an atheist in Egypt, but he said he had been arrested for expressing his beliefs publicly, accused of compromising the values of society, and of insulting religion. Free Mind TV began broadcasting late last year when Iraqi producer Khaldoun Al-Ghanimi, once again, I greatly apologize if I mangle these names, but he moved to the United States where he feels it is safe to talk about the dangers atheists face in the Middle East. Self-proclaimed atheists are punished across the Arab world. In some cases, they are given jail time. In some countries like Saudi Arabia, atheism is considered a crime worthy of the death penalty. In Egypt, Harkan said he hoped the TV project would encourage people with controversial beliefs to speak openly, diluting the taboo. Harkan speaks freely, but keeps his location secret. In Egypt's religious society, he said, universal acceptance right now is not likely. Once again, I agree wholeheartedly with what these guys are doing. It definitely takes a lot of guts to stand up to what is the main religion in your country and say, you know, I don't believe. I mean, even though Egypt is, as far as I understand it, is not actually a theocracy. I believe it's a democracy. I could be wrong. If anybody here knows whether Egypt is a democracy or a theocracy, please let me know. Send me an email. But, for example, if you were in Iran, which is a theocracy, and you were to stand up and say, you know, I am against the religion, chances are really, really strong that you will die. I'm actually gonna follow this program, Free Mind TV. Like I said, I'm gonna follow them and see what they're about, and hopefully they have their show translated to English. And I'll keep my followers kept up to date on what's going on with them. Meanwhile, thank you for listening. This has been Brain Power. As always, I'm your host, Thomas Trombley. And if you have a question you'd like answered or a story you'd like covered here, Send me a message on Twitter at BrainPowerUp. Use the hashtag BrainPowerUp. Like the group at facebook.com/BrainPowerOnline or visit the website at brainpoweronline.webs.com.